Good morning, y'all. I'm just getting set up here. Give people a moment to come in, get settled. I feel like if this were like a classroom, like if I was a teacher, okay, let's not go anywhere with that. But I was like, yeah, just get in, take your notebooks out, open your textbooks to page 37. There's no textbook yet, but there will be one soon. But yeah, no, you guys, thank you guys for tuning in. It is Friday again. Last week I skipped out on y'all on Friday because I had a wedding to attend. It was so fun. So fun. But I will tell you the bounce back. Yeah, I think we all know and can relate to the fact that things after 30, fun after 30 takes a different type of toll. And especially when you live, like with my lifestyle, I'm eating fairly clean. And I say fairly because I like to eat. So, but when you put things in your body, it really, it takes a different type of toll. I remember the first time when I first, like, I didn't do like your stereotypical detox. I don't believe in those. If we go into other subjects in my program, we can talk more about that. But when you let the things in your body that are typically in there, so that sugar, flour, alcohol, just substances, stress, even when you put them back in, you feel them so differently, and that's really the crux of my, when I talk about my program, it's an array. It's a lot of these topics that I go live about because this is a space where I get to kind of put out to y'all what work can be done, what work needs to be done. But then also, if you do, become a part of my community, that is the work that I help you with. And because if I had to give y'all one piece of advice, and as a therapist, I really don't like to give advice, but is that you can't do everything alone. You can do a lot of things alone. But you can't do everything alone. And so I really tried to design this program to help people do the work on their own, because I was one of those people who I had to do the work on my own. I had to find my own way. And because I had to break some really bad habits. Guess what one of those habits were? Maybe it could be the topic of today. Instant gratification was one of those really bad habits that I had to break, and I couldn't bring myself. People were my instant gratification. I wanted people to help me, and I wanted to help people. So therefore, I was constantly like searching for accountability outside of myself. And why I really wanted to bring today's topic to the forefront, and I'm excited to talk about it, is because we we live in a society where instant gratification is literally our lifestyle. We become, and mind you, instant gratification needs to exist. I'm not hating on it, but I am shining a light on it, because if we continue to favor instant gratification, the delay of gratification is going to become really freaking challenging. You think it's hard to get started now and do whatever work, whether it's an assignment you have to do, whether it's losing weight, whether it's paying bills. You think what you have to do is hard now. Let it go off longer, because you're like, no, I'm just going to do it this way. I'm just going to keep doing it this way. Your routine to this day could be, not everyone's routine, but your routine today could be based off of instant gratification that's actually unproductive and hurting you more in the long run than it is actually helping you right now. And why I bring this topic to the forefront is, so in my addictions background, just another introduction for anyone who is tuning in at this point. My name is Sara. I have been on my own journey of practicing what I preach as a licensed clinical social worker and clinical addiction specialist. And I help people pretty much get unstuck in their life and act on their purpose. I thought that I was meditating a little bit earlier, and this concept of our purpose protects us. When you're in line and you're acting in your purpose, Sometimes it's acting in your values, but if you really find that role and that purpose for yourself, you're naturally protected. Not like nothing can touch you. You're not untouchable, but you become naturally protected when you know and you're aligned and you're grounded within your purpose. And so something like your own brain, your own thoughts, and instant gratification becomes something that you become protected against. So today is going to be a little bit more of I don't want to say a lecture style, but I definitely was like, yeah, get your notebooks out, open the textbook. This is not a topic that I think people are unfamiliar with. We know, and it's pretty self-explanatory. Instant gratification. We're gratified instantly. I have to remember. So since I'm like bouncing back from a weekend of fun and pure instant gratification, my voice has been a little weird. I didn't get sick, but I've just been super tired. Bounce back after 30s. It's rough. It's rough. So what's my, hold on one second. Let me get one thing pulled up here. All right. So what prompted this topic for me today was I am in this social media space, right? I'm looking at all these other coaches. I'm developing my program. I'm building my systems. I'm doing this. And I was on a sales call, not my own. It was actually someone trying to sell to me. And when I was there, a couple months ago, I peeped that everyone is trying to sell something. If you haven't, mental health is actually a sale. That at one point in my career, and this is one of the main reasons that I made a change in my own life, was because I didn't believe what I was selling. People were coming to me to ask like, oh, well, what do you recommend about this medication? What do you recommend about this medication? Or what do you recommend about this product? What about this book? And I had this philosophy. I was like, well, I can't really recommend what I don't know, what I haven't tried. So I would take other people, my clients' recommendations, and I would combine it with my knowledge of what I did know, what I was trained. And then I have to kind of package this and give it back to my client for them to be able to believe it. I sell narratives. And this is just one way of looking at what therapy is. Because when you choose to go to therapy, when you choose to better yourself, you're choosing to challenge your own narrative. And you have to understand that the person that you are connected with, your therapist, they are going to be selling you a narrative, a new narrative. Now, it's not completely new. It's reformed, it's revised based off of the narrative that you already had. So it will be familiar, but you can't just buy anything from anyone. How many people, have you ever bought something that you're like, yo, that was not worth it? I have bought numerous products that I have been sold by the other person's belief in the value of that product more than how I valued the product. And so how does sales and instant gratification? Well, sales is literally designed to hijack your attention to find value, but it's a transference from salesman's belief to the person buying. Now, I feel like I'm probably breaking some kind of like entrepreneur code right now of like, I'm giving you the secret, but this is also the secret of how you help yourself get out of a rut, how you help yourself rebalance in your depression, how you help yourself build discipline to be able to protect yourself and your brain, is that you do have to consider delaying gratification. Not you have to consider, you have to do it. You have to learn how to delay that gratification in parts of your life, that in small ways. And because when I was being sold to, I was being told like, yo, yeah, you can maximize your investments here. Da, da, da. Now, it depends on also what you're getting sold, but this is just the storyline behind what made me think about, oh, yeah, this instant gratification is really something that we need to talk about when it comes to mental health. And so I was being sold this coaching program, someone else's coaching program. And I found myself really, I'm like, I'm not really getting sold on it. But they do have something that I don't have, and that's insight. They have insight on something that I don't have. So I could feel my connection to like, oh, I want that. I really want that. But there is any kind of insight and, education has an investment from someone else to have developed that. So yes, there is going to be a cost to that. And I look at the other areas of where we're sold things in our society, and the people literally, they provide scarcity, so you feel like you can't, if you don't get it now, you can't get it at all. And they play off instant gratification. Now, this has everything to do with addiction and addiction patterns, but it has nothing to do with a substance addiction. It has most everything to do with just the process addictions and process of life. That if you don't put this bet right now, you're not going to ever be able to make it. If you don't play the lottery right now, you're never going to win. If you don't do it right now, you're not ever going to get it. Hey, Nate. So we live in a world, in a society, and a culture that thrives off of being an instant gratification. It is consumerism. It is capitalism. It is part of our society. You can't change that system because it actually does work for some people. So if it's not working for you in your life, and I'm only speaking to the person that really wants to do something different, they want to see a different result in their life, then you have to work on this balance between instant gratification and delay of gratification. Now, delay of gratification does not mean you need to restrict yourself all the time. It does not mean, it just means that you have to rebuild a respect and appreciation for not getting what you want right now and whenever you say that you deserve it. Yes, whenever you say that you deserve it, not when someone else says that you deserve it. Whenever you say that you deserve it, you have to say no. So then this is where boundaries comes in. All these other topics, they intersect in one. So I'm going to try not to get too tangential here. But instant gratification requires you to practice a delay of gratification if you're trying to get out of a cycle or a pattern. But the best and the worst thing, I guess it's kind of a blessing and a curse, is that you control that narrative. You control when it is that you learn how to delay that gratification. But I just want you guys to see where and pay attention to where you're more susceptible from other people, because that's the balance too, right? Building transformation and aligning with recovery, or however you want to say it, align with transformation, is that you have to create this balance. It actually reminds me of biology class in high school where we learn about osmosis. If you can pull that out of the archives in your education, just remember this impermeable, the cellular membrane. And the process of osmosis is this natural, I'm going to get the terminology wrong because I'm not a biology major, but this natural transition of a higher, I don't think it has anything to do with pH, but it's where the process of water moves through the cellular membrane. And as humans, that not only is it happening from a cellular level with us, but it's also happening within the interactions that we have in a given day with people, with information, with intelligence is information, but with just natural exposure to people's energy. And so that building that discernment of instant gratification and delay of gratification has to come with you intentionally practicing, listening to other people, filtering out what is it that works for you and how you get to it is that what you want. The most efficient way, but also the most sustainable way. So one of those areas where I see a lot of people get caught up is within their support systems, is that you take someone else's feedback. That is a form of instant gratification because they're doing the thinking for you. They have now given you their insight, their experience, and you've completely adopted it and solidified it in your belief system without questioning it, without delaying just a little bit. I'm not saying throw it out with, the bathwater and the baby or whatever that term is, but I'm saying take a moment to take the insight that they've given you and actually be like, all right, can I put this to test? because what works for them may not work for you. And that's the one thing. If I go back to one of the stories where I was saying about I was on a coaching call for someone to sell me their coaching program, by all means, I need a coach. I can't do this, on my own. But I can also, if I was so open to hearing everything that this other coach had to say, then I would have missed the information I really needed, which would have ended up being a part of delaying gratification, because I'm not necessarily trying to invest in myself to go all the way in this direction. I have mentors and coaches across within my network that help me. And I'm still, I'm looking for more. I've learned from literally everyone. That's the blessing that I feel like I've been given, the gift that I've been given, is that I'm able to have a conversation and learn from every single person that I have. I was listening to Napoleon Hill again this morning, and he said, I'm the lucky one because I'm learning from 200 people and y'all are just learning from one. And I completely resonated with that, because a lot of people, when I'm in front of a group, when I'm in front of a crowd, I get to hear everyone else's story, and I learn from everyone else's story, and I take what information that connects with me, what resonates with me, and I get to put that in my toolbox of insight, perspective, and to be able to give that back to other people at some point. So when I'm on this coaching call, I realize, yes, it's the program that I really could need. It is that. But it also could be just the little nuggets that I didn't think about. I think about where I can learn. I can go onto YouTube. Education is free. You do not need a master's degree to do what I do in some way, shape, or form. You do need training. You do. But you don't necessarily need to throw your money at a full-time universal degree to do exactly what I'm doing. You do, like, to be licensed in this role. But I have coaches that I work with that they're in the wellness space, that I train them, I give them my insight, I tell them what to learn, how to learn it, and how to apply it, and they make it their own. And then they have their own clients, and people are getting better through the network of just, one person's education, one person's investment. So I realized in this coaching call, if I was in instant gratification mode, if I was like, just give me this information, then I would have missed what they did give me. What they did give me was that I never knew that this is kind of contextual to the coaching call, but you can negotiate your own bills. Not that it's like I've heard that before, but to really think that would be possible, of course it would be. People haggle all the time. They literally have shows on it in TLC, Extreme Cheapskate. You can do anything you really want to in this world, but you do have to believe that you can do it. That's the first step. So when we're talking about, like, how do you believe that? Challenging instant gratification, delaying gratification momentarily. I'll tell you how in kind of more specifics in a minute. But you have to start to believe and cultivate a belief that you can do anything that you want to in this world and in this life that you live. And then you have to apply it. So this is one of the main things that I see a lot of people struggle with. And if you have attention deficit disorder, anxiety, depression, any diagnosis, and I'll remind you, a diagnosis is a starting point, not your end point, and it's not an identity. But if you struggle with those particular things, then, excuse me, you are more than likely going to struggle with how you apply information. In a form of, probably one of the most minute, discrete forms of instant gratification that most people overlook is learning. Is that weird? Does that make sense to anyone out there watching me? The most overlooked, in my opinion, point of instant gratification, because it's bittersweet, it's a process. You need to learn in this life. But if you learn too much without applying it, you will get stuck. You will get stuck in just like, I need more information. I need more. I need more. That's exactly what anxiety does to people. Attention deficit disorder is like, we have almost too much information about what it is that we want to do that we can't actually apply it. So we get stuck in this cycle that we don't really consider is an addictive cycle. We become addicted to our own degree of seeking out information. I do it all the time. It's like, oh no, I'm not ready. I need to know more about this. When I will know more about it once I do it, once I activate the behavior, once I commit to the process of making the mistakes, because you will not learn. You can learn all you want on YouTube. You can listen to all the podcasts you want to on how to build a positive mindset. But if you do not take the risk to actually apply the knowledge, you will get stuck in instant gratification mode. And instant gratification will build you back to this cycle and of addictive, and it's an addictive pattern. And this is where I think I'm having a conversation with a lot of, what's the word? Not disclaimers, but caveats maybe, is that the word addiction in itself scares people a lot because it's like, oh, I can't be addicted. I'm not addicted to that. But it's literally the reality is that most of us are addicted to something. We can all become addicted to something, but we fear that we are. But when you're but there's the thing is like, if you're overlooking that fear of being addicted to something, then you're missing your moment to break through that fear because you're already experiencing it. You've denied yourself the reality that you could be, and therefore you do become, because you've denied it. You've ruled it out of your consciousness that it can't happen to me, and therefore it does happen to you, and you completely miss it. And let me take the you. We completely miss it because at that point we're not looking for it. So this balance between instant and delay of gratification is tricky. This is why I tell people, don't do this all on your own. You have to do most of it on your own. Your life has to be lived only by you. No one else can live your life. But when you do and you isolate yourself, and this is why introverts, calling out to all my introverts, when you're overwhelmed by society, when you isolate yourself, that is an instant gratification. It's a form of instant gratification for you to get stuck in your own comfort. And you also miss, Maisie, come on, come here. Sorry, her timing is just impeccable. So come here. So when you're an introverted by nature, I'm introverted by nature. Whenever I'm overwhelmed, I get overwhelmed by thinking about going outside. So therefore I fall back. You would think that would be delaying gratification. No, it is a form of like you have an impulse and you're following it. Your impulse is to isolate. So therefore you do. That's not always the answer. So when I'm working with my clients in therapy, exposure therapy specifically, is I am there as a grounding principle, as a grounding energy. Maisie, come here. Come on. Sorry, y'all. She's getting quite noisy. I think she's real passionate about this topic. Yeah. So when you have that overwhelm, and you're struggling with like, okay, I can't do any more peopling for the day. Yes, you may need some rest, but rest does not mean that you need to shut it down for the rest of the day. Rest does not mean that you need to turn off and go completely out. It may need to be that you make one last attention to self. You are your last person of the day. And I know that could be like, well, you getting rest is taking care of yourself. I agree with you, but here's my slight challenge is that, are you really taking care of yourself if you're just kind of zoning out, you're overwhelmed, you're just spent, and you're not doing something intentional like washing your face, stretching a little bit, because you're going to just be bringing all of that stress to your rest. That's not rest. That's distress. That you get nightmares from that. So when we become so overwhelmed, yes, resting is taking care of yourself, absolutely. But being intentional about self-care is going to heighten that. It's going to challenge that level of instant gratification for you to just crash. Because you're intentionally taking control back of, like, whether it's your central nervous system, whether it's your routine, but just overall your awareness, your consciousness to the moment. So I see a couple people here. I got a couple people on Instagram. Thank you guys for tuning in. But let me know what you think so far. Is this making sense to you? Do you have a form of instant gratification that you know that is something that you're trying to overcome? Because I know mine is probably sometimes talking too damn much. That was one thing. I was listening to my book earlier. Napoleon Hill, if you guys do not know him as an author, he's not actually a mental health practitioner. This is not a book it's actually about business, but it's also about life, because that's the one thing I learned about my own mental health is I learned it through business. When you have a livelihood that's completely dependent on you showing up for your clients and your success, your health has to be a priority. There's a reason the cliche health is wealth it exists, is that if you are not healthy mentally, physically, and spiritually, then your business is going to suffer. Your leadership is going to suffer. And so when I learned about my own mental health and I started I was like, I got to care for myself. I got to figure out, I got to move. The one way I delayed gratification was not hiring a trainer. Yeah, it's literally the opposite of what our culture says to do. And I was like, you know what, part of the reason it didn't feel right is because my relationship with money, I don't make a lot of money as a therapist. Part of why I went into entrepreneurship was to try to make more money. And along the way, I realized, I was like, you know what, I make enough, but the value of being healthy, of being able to do my own thing, of being able to really I don't want to say saturate, but to really believe that in these principles is how in turn I become a better businesswoman, because I now truly believe my craft. And when you listen to me, the only thing that I have studied in universities, and I've done a lot of self-study, but the one thing that has turned up my life the most is applying and truly believing what it is that I'm selling. So I will not recommend a product. I will not recommend a strategy. I will not recommend a skill that has not been tested by myself. And I took that to heart. I said what I did and I did what I said. And in turn, this is how I came. Scroll back 3 years. 3 years ago is where you can really, if you're new and following me, 3 years ago, I started looking completely different. I look at my pictures from a year ago and I look different because I'm doing different things now. I'm also trying to figure out, okay, I've lost the weight. I've, released myself from this. I went back out and started experiencing life again. And guess what? Life handed me a whole new freaking experience to figure it the fuck out. Excuse my language. But this is the reality. It is, I had to go through something else to be able to actually apply what I know again, to solidly believe, but then also to revise some of the things that got me out of depression. It got me out of this oppressed mindset, but they didn't free me completely into this next, phase of my life to be able to give this back and find a way for it to work for everyone. And I'm refining those principles and those I guess we're going to talk procedures. I mean, they're ways of living. I call them more principles and pillars of success. And I've been able to tap into this creative side of myself now to be able to, whether it's producing content that requires a lot of editing, but whether it's producing content or whether it's just having, what's another example? Being able to write. That's my creative outlet. That's one of my forms of content, whether it's, creating a video, but also whether it's maintaining my body. Honestly, my body, my physical body is one of my creative outlets because I never saw my body as an intentional tool. And I don't take it into that realm of sexual innuendos or anything, but I mean just create bodybuilding. Some people do that all in and they are focused on that. I didn't want to do that. So part of how I practice delay of gratification is doing it my own way. And so I follow my own plan. I focus on what it is that I want my body like. So I have my thing with my arms. I wanted solid arms. So I do a lot of upper body work. And in turn, I wanted to see my body change because for the first half of, well, not half of my life, the first part of my life, I was in a completely different body. And I don't know if anyone's ever seen that visual of the person has a lot of, is, you know, a heavy person and they're chiseling themselves out of their fat. Pretty much it's a stone, it's a statue. That I completely resonate with that visual. That is literally something that has motivated me to continue going because I'm now truly believing that it's possible to do, that I didn't give up because I just kept going. What if I didn't quit? What if I didn't do that? And when I did feel like I quit, that's when I got a trainer. That's when I collaborated with someone else because there's some things that you have to do on your own, and there are plenty of things that you have to do with other people. So that's one form of like how I balance that instant gratification and that delayed gratification. So one of the things that I think a lot of people maybe where my expertise comes in, a lot of my training is the chemical, like what happens to your body when you do instant or you get stuck in instant gratification. That's literally where these imbalances, where the mental health, just the world of mental health and diagnoses and severe diagnoses, addictions, that's where it starts to come in. The biochemistry shifts that happen when you have prioritized instant gratification over delay of gratification. And when I say prioritize, some of it's honestly not your choice. I'm not trying to give anyone an excuse here, but sometimes if you've never learned the impact of instant gratification, if you've never learned why you can't have that cookie and your mom said no, and you just think it's her being a butthead because I want the cookie and da-da-da-da. But that's what parents do. They teach us about the world. And if you had parents that did not teach you about the world in an appropriate way, then you're only operating off of the education and the narrative. You could have gone to a 4-year college. I know people with master's degrees, doctorate degrees that did not learn this particular principle of delay of gratification and instant gratification. I've treated psychiatrists before. The people who are I work with psychiatrists and we will work together and then no one's like really over me. But I've had patients who have all of this knowledge that they're smarter than me but they don't get the results that I do. Why? Because we were given different parents. I had different experiences. I had to figure out my own experiences to be able to help other people figure out their own. Now you don't have to do, you can have, there are good therapists out there. There are good individuals out there that don't necessarily have the experience of their own change to help facilitate change. But I can sure as hell tell you it's a lot more powerful and I can sell it a lot better because I actually live it. Just saying. That's the consistent form of feedback that I've gotten since I've been doing this. People develop a natural trust now because they're like, oh, she's actually done it. She knows it can do it. So if I don't know the answer, I'll try to tell you, you know what? I don't know the answer, but I'm going to figure it out for you. I'm going to figure it out. That is the type of person that anyone can become, because if you go to school, you have the opportunity to learn. If you have a learning disability, you have to find a way to learn differently. And that's what therapy can teach you. So I'm advocating for therapy, but I'm also advocating for y'all not to go to therapy and do the work on your own, but commit to the work. I don't care how fast you go. It took me, every day my brain tells me, oh, you're not doing it fast enough. I'm like, that's not true. I literally am doing it. I'm 33 years old, about to be 34. And I have lived a life of a lot of different experiences, and I have done something with them. I am way more successful and accomplished than some people may end up being in this world. And I don't say that to put anyone down. I say that as a fact that there are some people who will live a life without knowing what it feels like to be released from 300 pounds of weight. Some people, like, I got to almost 400 pounds and I was like, this hurts. I may be confident in what it is that who I am and what I look like, but I sure as hell don't feel good. I sure as hell am not comfortable. I sure as hell don't want to be seen for where I am right now. I could portray this confidence and I could lie to myself for the rest of my life, and it can get worse, and I can shorten my life, and I can increase my stress level, or I can do something differently now and see what happens. I got off on a tangent. What was I saying? Where was I going with that? Oh, biochemistry. What happens, because this is also something that I know, is that I was the patient. This is also where a lot of my providers, whether that be my professional providers or the providers out in the community, the parents of the world, and I want to help people be able to help themselves and understand when you come into challenges, how to deal with them. That may be dealing with challenging people, but just your own person, being your own challenge you're not going to be able to deal with other people's challenges if you don't know how to overcome your own. And so what happens from a biochemistry standpoint is that the more that you follow that instant gratification, whether it be with food, whether it be with people, so saying yes, people pleasing, number one form of, there's a lot of number ones. There's people pleasing is a very common form of instant gratification. Saying yes is instant gratification. Delay of gratification, no. I don't want to say it's that simple, because there's a lot of other things that go into saying no. Because now you got to feel like you fear to disappointing someone. You're completely shameful for what you say no. Everyone's no's are loaded differently, okay? But I want to make sure you understand, if you can take away one thing from today, saying no is probably the healthiest thing that you can do short term. Just practice saying no in little places, not like big. If big no's are really, like, if someone is like, yeah, I want to go, I don't know, there's so many things you can say no to. I want to go on this big trip and I want to spend all this money. That may be an easy no for you, actually. Maybe the big no's, actually, this is more common. The big no's are usually the small things that you can do, but you really need the autonomy to say no to them. Those are the areas that I want you to look at. Don't think that it's like someone coming to you and like, oh, I need $1,000. No, please say no to that, unless, you got some proof that otherwise they're going to pay you back. But the small no's, if someone asks you like, hey, could you help me with this? If it's going to help you feel a little bit more in control, be like, no, I really can't do that right now, but tell them what you can do. Tell them where it is and when it is that you can help them. And it's okay to say no. Will never know. Like, there's this degree of FOMO, fear of missing out, for a lot of people when they say no, and it may be missing out on the time where someone really needs you. If someone really, really, really needs you, you saying no respectfully, out of respect for your own self, you're not going to do it. And if you are, you might need to be mindful of your tone here. When you say no, have that belief that it's okay for you to say no there. And then the other person won't take it so like, oh, they let me down, if that's what you're worried about. You have to truly believe that if a person really needs you right then and there, they will ask you and explain why it is that they're asking you. So that's kind of putting that out there too, is if you are, for the person who's saying no and you're delaying that gratification a little bit more because you're a yes person, then maybe you want to try to first gauge the situation, but be like, is there something that you truly need? Like, what is it that you need my help with? If it's something that you really can't, it's like, it's not something that they really need you for, say no with no guilt. Because those are the small areas as to where you can start to bring your power back to yourself. And then you can discern a little bit more. Then you can say yes a little bit more. The type of people in this world, we need people pleasers, but we need recovered people pleasers, because you've done the work to see both sides. Most people out here, they're people pleasing with no plan. A recovered people pleaser always has a plan to know when their energy is getting low, when they have and need self-care time, and they will not be passing or transferring negative energy because they've overspent. And that's what's important about recovery for people to understand. So if you're dealing with that inattention, if you're dealing with that anxiety about saying that, that should tell you that you are in debt. You are in emotional debt. I keep getting off this whole biochemistry thing, but I just want you, the sum is, you become imbalanced because you follow instant gratification. Now your brain starts to get conditioned. You get all these little hits of dopamine. It is going to crave that dopamine, just like I crave sugar whenever it is I'm in an imbalanced state, because we're looking for that energy. Dopamine gives us that little like, I can do it. I can do it. Yep, I've said all the yeses. I can keep going. That's what instant gratification provides an imbalance with, is that it trains your brain to say, like, this is the only way that you can get energy. Caffeine, cocaine, sugar, carbs. Carbs are good for energy. Timing is imperative with them. But these small little instant gratifications, they collect. Like if you picked up every single penny that you found on the ground, that's like, oh, someone else pick it up, you would probably have a lot of money by now. If you picked up every single penny you saw, it may not mean anything to you in that moment of like, oh, it's just a penny. I can't necessarily buy something with it. Long-term, instant gratification will leave you in debt. And it's a debt that you can't see, you can only feel. And you feel it. You feel it like, oh, I feel so old. I feel like I can't get up. Well, that's an instant gratification. That creates mental health issues. So I'm at 40 minutes. I don't know how the hell I'd be talking for 40 minutes sometimes. But I will just say that I had a couple of other examples about instant gratification, but I might save those for another day. But just be careful out there, y'all. There are plenty of people selling you. Delay of gratification is just sleep on it. If you want to go buy something, you've got the money for it, you can do it, still sleep on it. Give yourself, if you want that cookie, have the cookie, but wait 30 minutes and see if you still want it. Even better, wait 30 minutes and drink some water. Because I can't remember the exact percentage, I would say, but 75% of the time that we feel hungry, we're actually dehydrated. Our whole society is basically, we have the largest, most obese society. I still fall in that category. I'm not focused on just the label of obesity, but the degree of unhealthiness that our country is built off of is immense. So we're already, if you want to say that you're behind, yeah, you're behind because you have not started realizing that your life is your responsibility. The system is not going to change unless the person in the system changes. You have to change before the system can change. And so that way, when you start changing your life, you have way more power, not only in the form of energy and feeling better, but you have more sustainability. You have the ability to make more money if that's what you want to do. But if anything, you have the ability and you will become more capable of living in your purpose and you'll naturally be protected. So, any questions? Any thoughts so far? Because I'm going to leave it there. I am going to, because I can beat this horse, and I don't like to beat animals. I love animals. I don't want to, and that's a lot for one day. But I will, just a couple of announcements. As you can see on I have not changed the caption at all, but I do have my app up and running. My program is up and running. I am opening consultation slots for people who want to get on one of the programs and join the community of just making small changes for a sustainable life. You can go to my website. Let me show you guys that real simple for you. Sara, no H, made it easy for you. Sara Wilder, lcsw.com. Click around. I got a little bit of more of my story up there. But then you can also download the app. We have a bunch of resources in there. And then I'm available pretty much as I can be to tell you how to use those resources to get the most out of them. And all of that's in there. And then if you do and are interested in joining the community, I made it very reasonable. I'm not in this to make a whole bunch of money. I have enough value and happiness from being able to help people help themselves. That tail-old saying of like, you can lead a man to water, but you can't make him drink. I tend to, I can actually help them drink quite a bit, but I can't force you to do it. I am here for whenever it is that you want to take a very reasonable risk, and until you want to take more. And that is starting with yourself, starting to pay attention to what it is that you need. And I have a better set of skills that can help people realize, okay, what it is that you do really need. A lot of it, what we need, we've convinced ourselves it's actually a want. It's not what we need. Like, oh, we want a partner. You don't always need a partner. Partner's more responsibility, and if you can't even live your own life first, you can't manage another partner. You can't manage a relationship if you don't have a relationship with yourself. And so those things really, I encourage people to just take some time to think about and to really embody how, and let that soak in, to be like, what is it that you really need? Reset a little bit. Because in that way, you'll become protected naturally from mental health issues. I wouldn't say that you're going to never be depressed, but you will have a less likelihood of having an active depressive episode, even if you've already been labeled as major depressive. You will, if you make small changes in your lifestyle, and I can tell you how to do it because no one told me how to do it. I just figured it out on my own, and I help other people figure it out. Not necessarily on their own, but I help people figure it out, and it's worked. It's worked. They don't live within the construct of the mental health diagnosis that they were given at one point. And sometimes they never, like, oh, they won't never come back. But I hear from them that they're doing well, that they're off on their life, they're experiencing life, and they have the tools and the coping skills to be able to manage that. And it's time for you to do the same. So I will see you guys next Friday. Don't have the topic quite yet, but be on the lookout. And I hope you guys enjoy your weekend. Happy Juneteenth as well. And happy Father's Day. Happy Father's Day. It is a holiday that I have had my own grapplings with, but I hope everyone has a good day and enjoys and pays respect to the fathers in their lives. Have a good weekend.